Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner, and guess what? I'm back. Been on vacation for a little bit, been riding my bike some, but not quite exactly vacation. Been working on the Horner Cycling Foundation, putting together a bunch of kids, a little bike library for the kids to ride. We got a ton of bikes now set up in the garage, ready to go, and we've been putting on some bike races. We finished 5 individual criterium races on Wednesday here in Bend, Oregon that finished a few weeks ago. And then we're going to start preparing for some cyclocross races coming up here in about 10 days time, thereabouts. We're going to do 5-6 individual weeks of races for cyclocross races coming up. So it's been busy here at the Horner house, and I've got a little bit of color in the face with a little bit of training. Been riding for about 2 weeks steady. It's been my biggest amount of riding throughout the 2023 season, but now we're getting ready for the Vuelta España. Now what's coming up at the Vuelta? Guys, this is the time you absolutely want to tune in because we're going to figure out who is the #1 ranked rider on the Butterfly Effect and Beyond the Coverage for the 2023 season. We got 3 legendary riders that are going to start this year's Vuelta España. We're talking about Jonas Vingegaard. He is the 2023 Tour de France champion and 2-time champion of the Tour de France, beaten both years none other than Tadej Pogacar from UAE Team Emirates. So he is the #1 ranked rider up here on Beyond the Coverage. Can he continue to hold it? Well, we got a big debate if he can hold it coming after the Vuelta is finished. If he goes into the Tour of Spain and he wins, for sure he stays #1. But let's say he goes into the Tour of Spain with top form like we saw at the Tour de France and he loses to his teammate Primož Roglic. Primož Roglic has absolutely been top-ranked rider on the Butterfly Effect and Beyond the Coverage in the early days of our video shooting here. But Tadej Pogacar is dominant all the way up until this July when Jonas Vingegaard dethroned Tadej Pogacar to become the #1. Well, we got a third rider starting the Vuelta. His name's Remco Evenepoel, and Remco Evenepoel's had a phenomenal season too, right? Won the UAE Tour. Won 2 stages at Catalonia against Primož Roglic, and if he hadn't celebrated on stage 3, he might have won Catalonia, and that would have wrecked the 2023 season for Primož Roglic and not be undefeated starting this Vuelta España. Let me remind you guys, Primož Roglic won Trino Adriatico, Catalonia with a stage win there too. Then he went on to win the Giro d'Italia on that phenomenal individual time trial stage on the penultimate day where they had to switch bikes. He dropped chain on this 1x-SRAM stuff and then got going again and still put 40-plus seconds into Geraint Thomas to win the Giro d'Italia. Comes back just recently, wins Vuelta a Burgos, but had some help from UAE Team Emirates, who basically pulled him all the way to the finish on stage 3. Some ridiculous tactics from UAE Team Emirates. They were racing like a bunch of knuckleheads there at Vuelta a Burgos. But he's coming into the Vuelta España, Primož Roglic that is, basically being undefeated and is going to have to battle against his teammate Jonas Vingegaard, who's had a phenomenal season and is currently the #1 ranked rider on the Butterfly Effect and Beyond the Coverage, and he has the least amount of wins throughout his career. Guys, he's about 27, 26 years of age and has about 25 wins throughout his career, Jonas Vingegaard that is, but this season, oh man, has he been on fire. Remember, he won in Galicia, finished 3rd to Tadej Pogacar at Paris-Nice, then went on to the Basque Country, destroyed everybody at the Basque Country. Dauphiné was remarkable. I mean, something of brilliance in terms of his form and his fitness going through Dauphiné, just dropping and lighting everybody up on the mountain stages there at Dauphiné to win the overall, and then goes into the Tour de France and rides almost a flawless Tour de France, with the exception of that Col de Tourmalet that they went over on stage 6, and then Tadej Pogacar being pulled all the way to the finish of Côte Ré-Cambasque, dropped Jonas Vingegaard along with Wout van Aert, who pulled all day long, was remarkable in terms of fitness, but they lost that stage, and tactically that's the one stage that they really messed up at this year's Tour de France. But when you look at stage 5, when he dropped everyone, Jonas Vingegaard, and dropped Tadej Pogacar, going over Col de Mary Blanc, you got to understand stage 6 makes a little bit of sense. Not the way I would have played it out, but the way Jonas and Jumbo-Visma did, and then they paid for it. Only tactical mistake throughout the season, really, big time, that cost Jonas Vingegaard, but still went on to have that remarkable individual time trial stage where he blew everyone away, and watts per kilo was probably unlike anything we've ever seen in bike racing in the current time and age anyways. Jonas Vingegaard coming into this Vuelta España, if he can come into the Vuelta on top form. Now, if he comes in. Remember, he just got done being a back-to-back Tour de France champion, so you have a lot of celebrations to do, a lot of phone calls to take, a lot of family to meet, a lot of friends to spend time with. So I'm going to be a little bit iffy on Jonas Vingegaard if he comes into this Vuelta España, if he can come in with that top form like we saw at the Tour de France and basically seen throughout this whole 2023 season. If he comes into the Vuelta España with anything that looks like his top form, though, and loses to Primož Roglic or Remco Evenepoel, he might actually drop from the number 1 ranked on the butterfly effect and beyond the covers and go to number 2 or even 3. Because remember, Remco Evenepoel's here. Remco Evenepoel just got done dominating the world individual time trial champion as he blew everybody away at the Worlds. And then, let me remind you, he won Classica San Sebastian, dropped everybody with about 40 kilometers to go, except for 2 breakaway companions, rode Vlasov from Bora Hansgrohe off his wheel going up the last climb, and then won the 2-up sprint at the finish to win Classica San Sebastian. We back up the season a little bit more for Remco Evenepoel. Let me remind you guys, he's the Belgian Road World Champion too. We back it up a little further than that. We'll go to Tour of Swiss. Wasn't super remarkable at Tour de Suisse, but still won a stage. Okay, there was a lot of drama at the Tour of Swiss. We know with the passing of Gino Mader that result is a little bit different, but we still know that he was solid at Tour of Swiss. We back it up a little bit further. Well, I already told you guys that he went good when we're talking about at Catalonia and probably should have won the general classification over Primož Roglic at Catalonia, but he finished second there with 2 stage victories. Move the calendar up a little bit forward, and we go over to LBL, where he won solo, dropping everyone at Liège, Bastogne-Liège, to win a magnificent solo victory at LBL. Then went to the Giro d'Italia and did not disappoint. Started the individual time trial, put the pink race leader's jersey on at the Giro from stage 1, held it into the second individual time trial where he won that one just by a few seconds, but still kept it. And that was with COVID, guys. He was sick going into that final individual time trial stage there for his racing anyways on the last stage before he dropped out and went home with COVID. And that opened up the door for Primož Roglic. Okay, let's talk a little bit now about Primož Roglic. I know I'm a little bit all over the map, but there's a lot to discuss, and I'm fresh and I got a bunch of energy. So now let's take a look at Primož Roglic. I already told you guys he's undefeated, right? We went into Trino Adriatico, he won there. Went into Catalonia, he won there. Went to Vuelta at Burgos, he won there. And now he's going to start the Vuelta España as a big-time favorite with, of course, Primož Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard. Sorry, not Primož Roglic, but Remco Evenepoel. Now, let's go back and let's look at Trino Adriatico. Remember that penultimate stage when Wout van Aert lit up and blew his team up into pieces? They had a small reduced group of about 30-40 riders tacking all over the place. Then we saw Alexander Vlasov really stick his neck out there, went up the road to try to win the general classification on the penultimate stage there after Wout blew everything to pieces. If UAE Team members don't start riding on that penultimate stage, Primož Roglic probably loses Trino Adriatico because the only guy left would have been Wout van Aert, and Jumbo-Visma weren't putting Wout van Aert on the front at the time. Maybe they could have. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? All right, let's back it up and go a little bit more forward because once we go after Trino Adriatico, we show up at Catalonia where Primož Roglic wasn't supposed to do, but he shows up for that because he decides he's got some form. And then he's racing against Remco Evenepoel, and we see that big battle. That was a magnificent racing. We go into the first real finishing summit climb there. Primož Roglic beat in the sprint Remco Evenepoel, and now he's race leader. But you go into stage 3, Remco Evenepoel's pulling on the front up the final climb left and right and just throwing energy out the window like it's free with none other than Primož Roglic sitting on his wheel. Wins the sprint, but celebrates at the line and loses a few seconds and then therefore doesn't put himself into the race lead. And Remco Evenepoel's words, not mine, where he said it's a whole lot easier to defend than it is to take away. He was right, 100%. And that stage cost Remco Evenepoel a shot at winning the overall classification at Catalonia. Well, Primož Roglic went on to win it. So Trino Adriatico, he wins with help from UAE Team members. Catalonia, he wins with help from Remco Evenepoel. Now we go into Vuelta a Burgos that just finished about a week ago, at least a week, 10 days before Vuelta España starts anyways. And we look at Primoz Roglic, guys, he looked phenomenal. When I'm sitting on the Chesterfield watching Primoz Roglic, his tactics, and even when you back it up to Trino Adriatico, he was calm, he was relaxed, he was never panicking. Catalonia the same way. He never looked 100% at either Trino Adriatico or Catalonia, but found ways to win without that top form. We go into the Giro, Primoz Roglic, same thing. He didn't look good on stage 1. He didn't look good in the first week. He didn't look good after the second individual time trial. And the second week of the Giro, he didn't look good. But he raced fantastically, tactically smart for the first year of his career. Now remember, he's only about 4 or 5 real seasons into his professional career of racing at the top level. But this year was the first time we've seen Primoz Roglic racing incredibly intelligent and not just burning bullets all over the place. And that's how he won Trino Adriatico and how he won, of course, Catalonia. But we go to Vuelta a Burgos, like I was saying, we go into stage 3. Let me take you up that final climb on stage 3 that summited with about 35 kilometers to go. They're going up that climb. You see it. UAE Team Emirates on the front. George Bennett's throwing down big time. He's blown off all of the dome mistakes for Jumbo-Visma's Primoz Roglic. Roglic isolated. He's with 3 UAE Team Emirates. George Bennett's there. Jay Vine's there. And Adam Yates is there. Let me remind you guys, Adam Yates podium at this year's Tour de France, so you know he's on form. Now, what does UAE Team Emirates do at this stage 3 of the Vuelta a Burgos going up this climb? Well, they got Primoz Roglic isolated, so what do? Jay Vine goes to the front, he picks up the pace a little bit more. Primoz Roglic doesn't drop. Then with about 600-700 meters to go, Adam Yates decides to attack to see if he can drop Primoz Roglic. Well, let me remind you guys, I already told you, it's 35 kilometers from the summit of that climb into the finish of that stage 3. So what are you going to do if you do drop Primoz Roglic up 600 meters? Let's say you put 10 seconds, 15 seconds at best on Primoz Roglic. Well, he's going to pull you back coming down the descent. So, would have been better tactics from UAE Team Emirates when they had 3 guys in that front group, especially when Jay Vine was in that front group with Adam Yates, to go steady over that climb, have the group get a little bit bigger, have 3 UAE Team Emirates group riders in that front group there with Primoz Roglic so you can attack them coming into the finish, left, right, 1 and 2. It's hard if you're only 2 UAE Team Emirates to attack Primoz Roglic because he's that strong and that explosive to get away from him. But if you had 3 and you have 10, maybe 15 riders in that group and none of them are wearing Jumbo-Visma except for Primoz Roglic, all of a sudden Primoz Roglic could have lost Vuelta a Burgos to one of the UAE Team Emirates riders because they raced tactically smarter. But remember, Trino Adriatico, UAE Team Emirates didn't race that penultimate stage with when Wout van Aert blew everything apart that intelligently. Go to Vuelta a Burgos, UAE Team Emirates still didn't race that good. If I take you guys back to the Tour de France with Tadej Pogacar and we go on Jouplan, remember Jouplan? Jumbo-Visma's drilling it on the front. Jonas Vingegaard's been talking about for half a year about how he's favorite and stronger than Tadej Pogacar in the bigger mountains. You know Jumbo-Visma were going to ride Jouplan 100%, but instead UAE Team Emirates get on the front and they start driving it for no reason when, of course, Jumbo-Visma would have done it anyways and then they could have been isolated. So UAE Team Emirates have tactically made mistakes throughout this whole season that have benefited Jumbo-Visma. They've benefited Jumbo-Visma at Trino Adriatico. The Tour de France on Jouplan definitely benefited Jonas Vingegaard. And when we look at Vuelta a Burgos, it definitely benefited Primoz Roglic. So tactically, UAE Team Emirates have been a nightmare. And now when we get into the Tour of Spain here, and you're looking at Jumbo-Visma, well, UAE Team Emirates have some numbers there because they have Almeida. He went third at this year's Giro d'Italia, and of course they have Ayuso, who went third at the Vuelta a España last year. But Primoz Roglic, of course, has benefited, and Jonas Vingegaard, Jumbo-Visma, their team has benefited from the mistakes UAE Team Emirates have made throughout this 2023 season. So when we get into this Vuelta a España with these 3 favorites, Jonas Vingegaard, number 1 ranked rider on my channel anyways, Primoz Roglic, number 3 ranked rider in the world on my channel, and Remco Evenepoel, number 4 ranked rider in the world on my channel. We got a big battle here, and when the Vuelta a España finishes, if all 3 of these riders are on top form, we're going to figure out if Remco Evenepoel can jump from number 4 all the way to number 1. And you guys look at it, you're like, you're crazy, Chris. How can he jump over Tadej Pogacar, Primoz Roglic, and drop over Jonas Vingegaard, who just got done winning the Tour de France. Well, Remco Evenepoel's been on some flying form. And remember, he's 23 years of age. He has a ton of victories to his name. And so if he can pull a second Grand Tour at 23 years of age, man, how else can you not put him as #1 ranked rider on the butterfly effect and beyond the coverage? And of course, when you look at Primož Roglic, he has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Grand Tour wins. And 1 is this year's Giro d'Italia, where he won on that remarkable individual time trial on the penultimate stage on that uphill finish. So if he wins the Vuelta a España against an on-form Jonas Vingegaard, how can he not be #1? If Jonas Vingegaard does win the Vuelta a España. Now remember, he's been flying since the beginning of the season. He won the Tour de France. He's been doing celebrations since the Tour de France for at least a week, if not 2 weeks after the Tour de France. Probably 2, maybe almost 3. So he might be coming in the Vuelta a España as just a decoy to help Primož Roglic battle against Remco Evenepoel. But let's just say he's on flying form, and I think he will be. I don't see Jonas Vingegaard as the kind of character that was out partying since the Tour de France finished. Did he have some events to go to? Certainly, but I bet he's been training. I bet he's been dieting. I bet he rides at the Vuelta a España here on flying form. And he could be the rider that wins the Vuelta a España here to win not only the Tour de France, but the Vuelta a España and keep his #1 ranking up here on the butterfly effect and beyond the covers and have the most dominant season. That's pretty remarkable because let me remind you guys, the guy who's not even here, Tadej Pogačar, he won Flèche Wallonne and he's a GC rider. He won Flanders. He won Amstel Gold. He won Paris-Nice. And he might be #4 ranked when the season's all said and done after this Vuelta a España, depending on how everybody's come in to the Tour of Spain starting here on this Saturday. It's going to be a remarkable tour. The organizers have set up a spectacular Tour of Spain here. The first 9 days of racing, anything is possible. The team time trial to open it up at 15 kilometers should set Jumbo-Visma into the leader's hot seat. But then after that stage 1, once you're talking stage 2, you have possible breakaway stage on stage 2. Then you have a mountain summit. Then you have sprinter stages. And then you have a couple more mountain summits before we get into the first rest day. You get into the second week of the Vuelta. You have the Col de Tourmalet. And you get into the third, you have the Angliru. So we have a lot of big time stages. Main thing for Remco Evenepoel, I want to point out, you better be calm. You better not make the mistakes that you made at Catalonia against Primož Roglic, because now you're racing against not 1, but 2 Jumbo-Visma riders who are the best in the world. So Remco Evenepoel has to be spotless with his tactics throughout the whole 3 weeks if he wants to win this Vuelta a España. And the kid, the Belgian kid, just might do it. I can't even tell you and pick a favorite. If I have to say, and I always say if you're a commentator, you basically have to pick. I'm going Jonas Vingegaard as the #1 favorite to win the Vuelta. Remco Evenepoel second, Primož Roglic third, and I might be a knucklehead up here for picking that because Primož Roglic might win the whole thing. But you got to pick if you're going to announce and if you're going to bring it to the public. So Jonas Vingegaard, if he has come through the Tour de France, not partying, and come in here with any kind of top form that's close to what we saw at this year's Tour de France, I think he can win the Vuelta a España. Remco Evenepoel, I'll slot him in the second. Primož Roglic, he's come in here as the undefeated rider. He's won everything. So how can I pick him as being third? Well, I just might be a knucklehead, but I'm going to throw him down as third at this moment anyways until we can at least get through the first mountain stages. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Once the Vuelta starts, it's going to be action-packed. I'll do a few more videos before the Vuelta starts covering some of the teams and what I believe some of the tactics might be. Keep in mind, guys, there's a host of other good riders. Geraint Thomas, second at this year's Giro d'Italia here. Egan Bernal has his form come up. Alexander Vlasov, Bora Hansgrohe, he's been on flying form, just got done getting second at Vuelta a Burgos. So you know the Russian rider is looking fantastic for Bora Hansgrohe, so we might see him up there battling against these top 3 favorites too. A host of talent to start this year's Vuelta a España. You know the organizers are already super excited, and we're under a week out before the race starts. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.